But now world leaders will be discussing how best to tackle climate change at the COP28 summit in Dubai later on this week.
It's going to be some gathering, isn't it? King Charles is going to be there, as well as Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, the Pope as well, and more than 160 other world leaders. But what is COP? Why is it so important?
Well, our climate editor Justin Rolat is here in the studio with us and is going to explain. Morning, Justin.
Morning, Sally. Well, United Nations climate summits are held every year for governments to come together to try and agree steps to limit global temperature rises. They're known as COPs in the UN jargon, and as Sally says, this is the 28th one. So why is it important? Well, this year, 2023, looks set to be the hottest ever recorded. And we've seen all sorts of climate-related heat waves, storms and floods. The CO2 released when we burn coal, oil and gas acts like a blanket warming our atmosphere. In Paris back in 2015, that was the first time all countries agreed to work together to try and limit the rise to 1.5 Celsius. Up for discussion this time will be ramping up countries' efforts to cut emissions, fast-tracking the move to clean energy sources and, crucially, releasing more cash to help poorer countries switch to green energy and adapt to climate change. COP28 is being held in the United Arab Emirates until the 12th of December. The UAE is one of the world's top 10 oil-producing nations. And so holding the conference there is controversial, as I have been finding out.
And now, more than ever, we need to unite on climate and deliver a clear message of hope.
The United Arab Emirates government appointed Dr. Sultan Al Jaber to head up its COP28 team, but he is also the head of the UAE's huge state oil company and its renewable energy business. The documents show that in meetings with at least 27 foreign governments arranged as part of the UN climate process, Dr. Jaber was briefed to discuss business for these firms, including oil and gas deals. Now, attempting to do business deals, especially oil and gas deals, during the COP process appears to be a serious breach of the standards the UN expects of COP presidents. It told the BBC presidents should be impartial and act without bias or self-interest. Professor Michael Jacobs is an expert on UN climate politics.
This looks breathtakingly hypocritical, but I actually think it's worse than that, because the UAE at the moment is the custodian of a United Nations process aimed at reducing global emissions. And yet, in the very same meetings, it's actually trying to do side deals which will increase global emissions.
We know at least one country followed up a potential fossil fuel deal raised in a meeting arranged by the UAE's COP28 team. But 12 countries say there was either no talk of business deals or meetings did not take place. The state oil company's HQ towers over the Abu Dhabi skyline. The COP28 team did not deny using climate meetings to discuss fossil fuel deals. It told the BBC private meetings are private, adding Mr. Jaber was focused on delivering ambitious and transformational climate outcomes.
So Justin's here on the sofa with us now. And let's start with these allegations, because a lot of people are going to be interested in this. This is serious.
They certainly are, and there was a lot of concern among activists and other people about having a petrostate, the UAE, hosting the talks, and there were fears that this kind of thing might happen. I mean, we now have evidence that they were certainly planning to do this, and as you saw, they haven't denied that they used the talks to further fossil fuel deals. What they said to us was private talks are private and we're not going to comment on them. But they do also say, look, they're really ambitious to try and get the best outcome they can. And I think that's the really important thing here. Yeah, there might have been some kind of wrongdoing in the run-up to this, but the really important thing is to try and get a positive outcome for the world, because they're custodians of a world process. Try and get a good outcome for the world in terms of tackling climate change. Because I said at the beginning, this looks set to be the hottest year ever. So not just, you know, in the last couple of thousand years, probably the hottest year for 120,000 years. So since before the last ice age. And that really is something that should worry us all.
And the guest list is unbelievable, isn't it?
It is. It's very stellar, isn't it? Yeah, it's a proper red carpet. I mean, the Pope. Oh, King Charles, obviously, that's great. But the Pope is extraordinary. He's not been to one of these conferences before. And, obviously to have the leader of the Catholic Church urging people to take action should be something that will really kind of mobilise public opinion behind this. So that's really significant. 167 other world leaders all kind of getting together. And I think, often people say, well, what's the point? They do this every year. And you pointed out, didn't you? It's the 28th one. I mean, you've been doing this for 28 years. How come you haven't solved the problem? It's a very tricky problem, first thing. But also, we should remember this is a situation in which, an Israeli representative will be sitting with a Palestinian representative, a Russian with a Ukrainian, all coming together to try and tackle this global problem. And we should see that is a very positive thing.
Here in the UK, of course, the last few weeks we've had changes in the government's plans of how we would get to net zero. We've had talk about, drilling in the North Sea again. Things have maybe, critics would say, taken a bit of a backward step. Is that the same all over the world? Are other countries making similar kinds of decisions?
No, I mean, Europe is staying very committed to tackling climate change a priority. The same is true of America and China. China and America got together a couple of weeks ago to express their ambitions for ambitious settlement at COP. So lots of big nations around the world are really saying this is an absolutely crucial issue and we really must do more to tackle it. So it's going to be really interesting just because it's so hard. We all know how hard it is to get even like 5 people to agree on something, let alone get 190 countries, all the countries in the world, to agree on something as tricky as this. But hopefully there will be progress in Dubai.
2 weeks of talking ahead.
2 weeks of talking ahead. I'm going there tomorrow.
We will talk to you from there. Thank you very much indeed. Before you go, cheers.
Time for the sport now. John is here paying tribute to a